Hello and welcome to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. Today, our special guest is Paul Warley, and Paul is the CEO of Ascent Solar Technologies. And I was looking up Ascent Solar Technologies, and I think the word ascent means ascending. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thanks for having me, Sean. I'm forward to talking with you.
Yeah. And so you are the CEO of Ascent Solar Technologies, and it seems like a very special and interesting company. I know that I had somebody on the podcast in the last year, Mark Morose, who started off working when solar was only for space, and now you are working in space solar, I believe. Is that the way it is?
That's our primary sales channel is solar and space, yes.
So do you sell more to like Earthlings, humanoids, Klingons? What's your main market?
Our market is basically anybody that could potentially put up a satellite, whether that's, a SpaceX that would put up a very large constellation. There's people that put up constellations in, 50 to 100 satellites. Then there's people that put constellations up to 200 and then 200 or more, and then there's people that put up 10 satellites. But we would provide solar for any of those parties, and the ultimate customer could be DoD, or it could be communication satellites, weather satellites, or traffic satellites, you name it.
I don't know if you could believe this or not, but I haven't even put up one satellite yet. So I know that's kind of hard to believe. So you said even SpaceX, are they using your solar for like Starlink or?
No, I use them as a kind of the large provider. So you would have a large person that would need our equipment. So you've got Kuiper and Starlink are, they're going to all be plus 1,000 satellites for their constellation. So, I'm not selling anything to Starlink or Kuiper.
And so, you know what? I'm not familiar with, what is it, Kuiper?
Kuiper is Kuiper. They're a division of Amazon. And those satellites are going to they have multiple uses, but probably the biggest uses is to run their delivery mechanism.
Yeah, I heard that Amazon would be competing with Starlink at some point, so that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I'm putting together a solar training center right now, and out there we have Starlink, and one of the reasons why I'm not there doing the podcast right now is Starlink has too much latency, and one of the problems is when you're doing a podcast, you both talk at the same time if it's, with too much latency, because you have to wait to hear the other person, or, you don't want it to take a second, or you'll just be talking over each other the whole time.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
We might have a call off record on that one, but I'm not going to.
Okay. Yeah. Right. And then I also noticed too that you are using a different technology than I've known for people to use in space. And so I know that the space station, I guess gallium arsenide, and I know that was designed a whole long time ago. The space station's been up there for a while, but that's, I guess, why it has that maybe brownish, reddish color with the solar that's up there. But you are using different thin film technology. Gallium arsenide is thin film, but you're using SIGs, the same technology that Solyndra was using.
To be clear, the gallium arsenide is a silicon product. It is not nearly as thick as ours. The one on the space station basically puts its silicon modules, and then there's some kind of flexible material between them, so there's big gaps. And so when they roll it up, it's enormous. When we roll ours up, it's like Christmas paper. Okay, so it's totally different. SIG stands for copper, indium, gallium, selenide. And that's what our patented technology puts together. So we have layered, and then we have what's called a SIGs machine, and that's where it lays those properties down on it. We start off with moly, then it runs through the SIGs machine, and then it goes through some other processes. And that's what we produce.
Yeah, and so I guess they call it thin film because it's a lot thinner than like crystalline silicon PV, which is the majority of all PV. And so what you're saying maybe is
Correct.
the big benefit is it's very packable, and then you roll it out when you get out into space?
Yeah. If you want to roll it, there's nothing out there that rolls, or if you want to bend it around the corner, when I say rolls, let's get it back. I think there's a couple of products that if ours rolled up to that, the other products this really didn't be that. Would be, so we're rolling up anywhere from 4 times as tight. And when you start talking about the one example you used with gallium arsenide, we would roll up, 20 to 30 times.
Okay, and then most people listen to this with audio, so you're showing a thermos, I don't know, maybe it was like 4-inch diameter or something like that.
It's 2.5 inches, yeah.
Oh, 2.5-inch diameter, okay.
Yeah.
And then with a 2.5-inch diameter, you can roll it up. Like, how much can you get in that area? Like, how long can you roll it out? What would be like the linear distance?
Well, the more roll you need, or the more product you need, it would be, it would be thicker. But the deal we just announced, Novi, I think is approximately a meter long. I say approximately, I don't remember the exact deals, but with our product, you could go as long as you want to. Conceivably, most people don't want to go over, call it 12 to 15 meters, but you could put it out that far.
So you could get 15 meters rolled up to 2.5 inches?
Well, if you went to 15 meters, it'd probably more be like 5, but yeah.
About 5 inches or something? Wow.
Yeah.
So I guess, you always think about solar here on Earth as they talk about the efficiency. And so, how many watts per square meter. But I guess when you're in space, you have a lot of space. So maybe what the big calculation should be is how packed you can get it. And that would be a couple of different ways of looking at how packed it is. One would be weight, of course, when you're sending things to space. And the other would just be, the volume of how big it is. You can't have this big, huge things that you're sticking in rockets, and then so you can pack it up nice and tight, get it out there to space, and then open it up because out there you got space for it.
Well, there's several technologies. You can roll it, and then you have deployables. They can spring out. A lot of them just open up, and they're squares, and they just flap open. Okay? So we can go on any deployable you want. The best way to look at space is watts per kilogram.
Watts per kilogram. Okay.
The reason you're looking at the weight is because it's so expensive to send up to space. If you're getting to LEO, which is the lower Earth orbit, you go to LEO, it costs somewhere between, call it $125,000 and $250,000 a kilogram to put it there. If you're going to the moon, it's $750,000 to $1 million a kilogram to put it on the moon.
Wow, I better lose some weight before I go there.
If we're significantly lighter, it can save a lot of money. Now, so the silicon will have higher, it depends on what kind, but it would have higher power output for the first 18 to 24 months, depending on what it is. Gallium arsenide starts high, degrades more quickly. Regular silicon degrades also. Ours degrades, but we kind of plateau. And so it's a question of how much power. You got to design the system. So ours would be, if we don't produce as much power at first, we would have a bigger array. We would need a bigger array, but at the end of the life, we're producing more power than most silicon.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I just always was thinking that, you want to have your PV more efficient if you send it to space regarding power per area, like watts per square meter. But really, it has to do with the weight. And if you get something that's super light, like what you're using, SIGs, copper, indium, gallium selenide, thin film, you can really fit a lot, or you could get a lot in a little amount of weight because it's thin. Thin film is thin, and so it doesn't weigh as much. So that's pretty cool. It was something that I hadn't really thought of before.
Well, most silicon products still use glass. We don't use glass, which really helps on the space debris. So if something hits our product, and if you looked at our website, it hits our product, basically the electricity flow just goes around the hole and then comes out the top. So the only damage to our product is if I have a hole that's 2% of a module, we only lose 2% power. Whereas with silicon, when it hits the glass, it could knock out the entire ring. It could knock out a panel, or it could knock out 4 or 5 modules.
Huh. Yeah, that makes sense too. So, yeah, with glass, you crack it and break it and you're in big trouble. But one way of looking at thin film too is it's sort of like a fabric. So you put a hole through it, there's a hole. You got like a hole in your jeans or something like that. The rest of it still works.
Yeah, we use a very thin sheet of polymer plastic, basically. That's what ours is, flexible plastic film. And that's what we start the process on.
And what kind of size of modules are you using up there? Is it like bigger than what we see here on Earth, 1 by 2 meters, or smaller, or all different sizes?
Normally, let's say you would have a larger array. It would be 1 meter by 1 meter, and it might have, depending on whether you want high voltage or that, which we were able to design a specific module that would fit into the 1 meter by 1 meter. So it could have, it could be 6 by 4, or it could be 6 by 6. It could be 8 by 8 or 8 by 6, depending on how long you do it. So it's basically, you can design a product. We're not like silicon that's just very kind of fixed. We can design whatever it needs to meet power needs and voltage needs. We have a lot more flexibility in producing volts versus just watts.
Okay, yeah, because, with thin film, the solar cells are stripes. So you can make the stripes real skinny, so you can fit more of them there to get higher voltage, all that kind of stuff. And you don't see SIGs as much on Earth these days. And I guess that has a lot to do with what we on Earth are calling efficiency is, watts per square meter. But since, the rocket equation makes it so expensive to get things out of Earth's orbit, then it's that weight that's the main concern. And so what kind of efficiencies are you seeing, though, just out of curiosity for, like watts per square meter?
Okay, I don't go there, so I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
But efficiency-wise, and I'll just, we are somewhere between 15.5% and 16% efficient in space. On Earth, we would probably be closer to high 14s. Okay, and the fundamental difference, what you see is SIGs on terrestrial, is a silicon cell where they put it on something flexible. So again, if I can roll that tight, they can only, if I'm rolling to 5 inches, they're rolling to, 17 inches. If you wanted to roll it, and we can completely curl around, and they're like this. They can't go as far as that. So their SIGs is more like flexible silicon substrate. It's not really what I call copper, indium, gallium selenide. It's a little different. Now, the Chinese has some stuff, but if you go on their website and say, I need X, they'll send you an email back typically that says, well, when we're able to produce it, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Because it's a pain to produce.
Yeah. And so where are you doing the manufacturing?
We do it in Thornton, Colorado, which is a northern suburb of Denver.
Great.
You can use this process and put it on glass, but it's not flexible. It'll give you a higher efficiency, though.
Great.
I can come up with a thin film where I can take above 800, maybe say 8, I can take it up to 850 cells. It would get much higher efficiency.
Great. Are you in Colorado?
Right now, I'm in Atlanta, but I'll be heading to Colorado early next week.
Yeah, there's an ASIS conference, American Solar Energy Society conference, that's going to be in Boulder in August, and I'm sure they might want you to give a speech there. Let me know if you're interested.
I mean, sure, I would be interested.
Okay, I'll let them know. They're a great group of people there, and I'm teaching some National Electrical Code classes, and I'm getting a little bit of an award there, so it'll be kind of fun. Along with Bill Brooks will be there too. So, like when you're making solar for space, it's got to be totally different than making solar for Earth these days. It's like when you're making solar for Earth, we call that terrestrial solar. That means you got to really ramp up production. You're spending billions of dollars. You've got to, like, to get the price right, you have to have like tons of robots, but because you have to make so many gigawatts. And I'm sure you're not making any like kind of gigawatts or even megawatts.
No, we have a capacity of 5 megawatts.
Really?
Believe it or not, space needs, you got to break it down depending on, what quarter it is or not. But space probably needs between 12 and 20 megawatts.
Really? I wonder how many megawatts are in space. So space needs about 12 to 20 megawatts per year, huh? That's actually a lot.
That's about now. The satellites going up are multiple, but so maybe 50 to 100. They would be in several years. But as the satellites need more power, they're going to need more power from solar.
Huh.
So kind of how you have to look at it. So, but right now, if the DoD decided that hey, everything needs to be rolled. I'd have to crank things up, add shifts or not, but I could probably do it all.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot.
It's not much. Your average solar farm is 50 megawatts or something. So.
Yeah. But that's a lot of stuff out there. I guess there's just a ton of stuff out there in space.
Yeah. The average array, if you take all the arrays, is probably less than a kilowatt.
Less than a kilowatt.
Average.
Okay, yeah, that would make
probably
sense.
500 to 600 watts.
Okay.
Because probably half of the satellites that go up are, small sats, and they go anywhere from 50 to a couple hundred watts. And then the bigger stuff might use, and their array may use 15 to 20 volts.
And I guess up there too, depending on what kind of orbit you're in, but you have lots more sunlight up there. You don't have clouds and things like that. And I guess in low Earth orbit, you can get behind the shadow of the Earth, and you'd have to have some batteries there. But in geosynchronous orbit, I guess you're like very rarely behind the shadow of the Earth.
Yeah, it depends on how high you go. But yeah, you're getting sun somewhere between, 19 and 23 hours if you're high. But you're still getting sun typically over 12 hours even in LEO.
Sure. Yeah, and that's like full heavy duty sun, not going through any kind of Earth's atmosphere or morning or evening, or not behind any trees. So that's really interesting. So are you up there on all different kinds of satellites?
Right now, we've got satellites that are getting ready to be launched. And we were tested on MESI, which is a space station. We've been tested on some other stuff, but the stuff we've sold recently, it probably won't be launched for 5 to 7 months.
Okay.
So it takes you multiple months to build a satellite, then you're waiting in line to take off to get into space. So once we sell our product, it probably takes anywhere from 5 to 12, 13 months to actually be in space.
So when you send it up, is it already like fully assembled, or does it assemble itself when it gets out there in space?
No, it would be assembled here, but it depends what the ultimate customer wants. They could want a total array design where we would do the whole array design and they would put it on the deployable mechanism. Or they could just say, send it to us in module form, and it's a stick and paste, and they put it together.
But it's not like you send it up and like the Hubble Space Telescope or something, it like unfolds like a transformer, and one of those transformer toys, I should say, and turns into something different than what they launched up there. It's just already fully a satellite, already assembled the way that it's going to be when it's up there, I guess.
Right. Solar's assembled, and then it either unfolds or rolls out. Correct. Every now and then on some smaller ones, you could take ours and stick it to the side, and it would go all around it. And so there would be, no deployment that case.
And I think I noticed, I was looking on your website, it says that it works for like regular solar, but also for concentrating solar. Are people doing it with, like, I guess mirrors or lenses? Maybe it would be mirrors.
Yes, we're in the middle of doing some testing. We have a board advisor who's, founder of SpaceX. He's helping us.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, you can concentrate hours, power. We have been tested up to, and you have to have some coolant on it, but we've been tested up to 100 suns.
Mm-hmm.
Silicon tends to melt at 6 to 8 suns. Okay. Ours is so thin, it's much, much, much easier to cool. So like even space solar is probably 3/8 of an inch thick, and ours is millimeters thick.
Uh-huh.
So we're much easier to cool, but even uncooled, we can go much higher than silicon.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty interesting. And then are you looking at space-based solar power, SBSP, where they will microwave the solar energy back to Earth?
I think there's out there multiple people looking at it. The issue there is creating a beam that can either be stopped or bend, okay, when they beam power down, just so you don't hit planes or animals or things like that.
Yeah.
I know the Chinese have set some stuff up, and they're going to beam it down to a very specific spot, but I have no idea if they take all out here. They're just going to keep planes, whatever wildlife flies through it flies through.
Yeah, I know even where I live, and it's the territory of Pacific Gas and Electric, the utility, and over a decade ago, they had a contract to purchase space-based solar power from a company called SolarSEAN. And then I wrote an article in Solar Today magazine and interviewed the guy that was putting together SolarSEAN. So they've been looking at it for a while, and I think they're experimenting with it right now. And some people think it's, a really big thing in the future because you can get it to where you need it. It gets rid of some of the need for energy storage. It goes through the clouds. And what this guy was saying is with the microwaves, when you're beaming it down, it's going over a larger area. So it wouldn't be like a laser beam where it, just going to like vaporize people in an airplane or something like that. And then, of course, it would be a no-fly zone. And then if you were inside of a metal airplane too, I think it wouldn't be able to get inside of that too.
Okay, I'm familiar with, there was one school out of San Diego. Is that the one you're talking about? There was one school out of LA?
Yeah, this was a while ago when I interviewed this guy, but he was like pretty much next door to SpaceX. Like he wasn't affiliated with SpaceX, but he was down there, whatever it was, Hawthorne or something like that in Southern California. And so I figured it was probably strategic why he was next door there, but he had a serious plan.
There was some stuff that he experimented with really light, what we call very minimal microwaves. And I saw a demonstration. Actually, they were testing like 5 or 6 different solar companies. They actually bought some stuff from us, but it'd be down, but it would power a house. And either 60 Minutes or NBC or somebody had it owned and it would power the house. So it was a very light wave, and it would capture it, and then it would power the house. That was like 3 years ago, though, or 2 years ago.
Yeah, and this was like maybe about 10 years ago when I interviewed this guy. But I remember he was saying that the wavelength had to be longer than a raindrop, so it would go through weather. And it was like they could just beam it to wherever, and it would be like 24/7, except for sometime around solstice. It would actually, get behind the shadow of the Earth, because they would also have it out at geosynchronous orbit, which is super far out there. And then he was saying that they were also looking at beaming it to the moon, and they wouldn't have to use that microwave wavelength of electromagnetic radiation because they didn't have to worry about going through raindrops, because it hasn't rained on the moon in at least a week.
That's over my head.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I'll put a link in the show notes to that article. I thought that was super interesting. And I know that they're doing more of that kind of stuff too coming up. So
I'm under NDA with several companies, but they're talking. I mean, it's potentially coming, but the whatever wave wavelength these other people are using, it's going to, they have to worry about, waves, wildlife. It's a fairly big beam. It's not like a true laser beam.
Yeah.
Some are lasers too, but anyway, there are various technologies out there, but then you have to go through all the governmental entities to give the right to beam it. It's going to be a longer sales cycle.
Yeah, and I remember that he was saying too that birds could fly through it and it wouldn't kill the birds because it was such a big beam that it wasn't like this super concentrated energy that when they were beaming it down, and it was kind
It's
of
low power.
Yeah.
That's the difference. The other stuff I'm talking about be much higher power.
Yeah.
We may be talking about the same company that did the.
Yeah, it was called SolarSEAN, I remember. I think the guy's name was like Spurlack or something like that. But yeah, it's super interesting, super cool. All of this space-based solar power and just, solar power in space. I know that the first solar that they sent to space was on the Vanguard 1 satellite. And I'm trying to think of what year it was, like 1956? It was right after Sputnik. 56 something, or no, 58.
56, and I'm holding up down Arsenal.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, so Sputnik was October 4th, 57. And so I believe it was St. Patrick's Day of 58 is when the Vanguard 1 was sent up there. And it was sent up further than Sputnik. It was the first thing with solar on it in space, and it's the oldest man-made thing in space right now, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, Sputnik just deorbited, I think. Yeah.
But anyway, so I believe that it was March 17th of 58, and that's when we got the first solar up there, and of course it worked longer than just, sending some batteries up there. And it's still up there now. Some people would just call it space junk. And they have backup copies of it because when you're going to send something to space, it's, you want to have a backup sitting there. And I got to see one of them at the Smithsonian over there at the Dulles Airport. It's one of the Washington, D.C. area airports over there in Virginia.
Okay.
And then you can also see a space shuttle, Enola Gay, all kinds of crazy stuff over at that airport. A Concorde jet, Blackhawk. No, not a Blackhawk. It was... Can't think of it. What's that super fast?
There's a plane that's the Blackhawk. Are you talking about the SR-71?
Yeah, SR-71. Yeah. They have one of those there.
That's referred to. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I've driven by there.
Yeah, and so if I've done it for just having stopovers over at Dulles. And in fact, I was there a few days ago, but I didn't have enough time to go to the museum.
Is the museum in the airport itself?
It's at a hangar there. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't cost anything extra, and it's got everything from Wright Brothers to space type of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they even had a Cessna 150 in there that you can go and sit in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool museum. We interrupt you for a very important announcement. Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast has been brought to you by Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. That's right, Sean White is sponsoring his own podcast, and he wants to remind you to go check out some of his classes. You can go to SolarSEAN, that's Solar, SEAN.com, and then click on the links to check out his classes. You can check out his heat spring classes, and you can also hire him to teach classes for you, like at your company, something like that. Now back to the show. But yeah, that's, solar's got quite the space history. And as Mark Mrose was telling me a while ago, he was one of my first solar instructors. And when he was soldering together solar cells for space, people were saying that we'll never have terrestrial solar. That's crazy. And now it's, mostly terrestrial. So that's pretty neat.
Oh, we have 99.8% of it. Just,
yeah, at least. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So say that number again. Like, I wonder if I could even figure out, how much solar is in space.
I would have to be guessing. I mean, if I had to guess, it would be, 100 megawatts, but that's, 40 or 50 years of solar. So.
Yeah, 100 megawatts or something like that. That sounds like it could be right.
That's the total guess on. It could be 200.
Yeah, well, still, that gets you on the same sort of magnitude right there. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I think like 7 to 10 years ago, they would only put 1 to 2 megawatts up.
Okay, yeah. I just asked ChatGPT, and it's saying probably between 300 to 500 megawatts.
Okay, see, I was way off.
No, I mean, you were on the same order of magnitude. You're a
Yeah.
lot closer than I would have been. I would have been like 100 kilowatts to, I have no idea. Because I know that a lot of the satellites are not
Because some of the people
big.
that have put up, like DOD's putting a lot of satellites up and this and that, and I don't have a reference of, as the satellites got bigger, how much more solar is on them.
Mhm.
That's the reference. The other thing I thought about after I answered is there could be 50 to 75 megawatts up there that's not being used because a lot of the satellites were way up and they're literally space debris now.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not,
And just like the
what's gonna
Vanguard
happen
1.
to them unless they collide with another satellite. But yeah, so
Mhm.
they're not being used.
You know who would be really interesting for me to talk to on the podcast, if anybody knows anybody, is somebody that's a designer for space solar. That would be kind of cool. I guess you probably sit in meetings with some of those people, Paul.
There are people that actually design. It's funny that we give them a design or a schematic based on, they give us certain things like parameters around how wide and tall the solar is going to be, and then how many watts or volt or power they want to put out. And then another number would typically give it out is what production do they want at hot and cold, because space is going to range from 150 degrees Celsius down to minus 100 degrees Celsius. And so they want to figure out what the power production is in those ranges. And then they give an end of life minimum, they give a beginning of life minimum, max. And that's what you kind of design the actual panel and array around.
So I imagine that they might have heating and cooling systems, especially for the batteries.
I don't know about the batteries. I do know that, okay, so our product actually dissipates heat very well.
Mm-hmm.
I do know in some cases you want to either cool your solar, if it's silicon, or figure out a way to dissipate the heat.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see honeycombs around them, and sometimes there's different other products to try to keep the solar cooler because it lasts longer.
Okay, yeah, so like a honeycomb would be sort of like when you see an aluminum cylinder head, it's got this extra surface area where it could dissipate the heat.
Correct.
And I've even seen some products. There's some kind of product. I saw it at a trade show in China 10 years ago, and I saw it over at Masdar, which is in Abu Dhabi. And it had like aluminum fins that they put on the back of the solar module. However, for terrestrial solar, it ends up costing more than the whole solar module to do that. So it didn't really make sense. But up in space, it makes a lot of sense. I guess if it doesn't weigh too much.
Correct. They don't typically, on our product, they don't put it on.
And do you see them ever going to alternating current, or is it everything direct current up there?
Oh, God. That's probably, I don't know. I'm just trying to go back on some of the bids we made.
Yeah. Probably just like USB-C, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you just go with one, but I'm not never one to ask, honestly.
Okay. But yeah, I imagine they would probably just keep it DC, unless maybe for some motors and compressors, they might want alternating current for that. But yeah, it would just be real interesting for me to talk to somebody that's designing these systems. But I guess a lot of this stuff is probably secret, intellectual property or government secrets. One thing that I remember looking
That's
up.
what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll ask our board advisor that was a founder of SpaceX, and he does he helps with power schematics and designs, but it's kind of separate. You have your solar, the output of the solar, then you have the power systems designs, and then the power systems designs are around whatever the action is going to be used. And a lot of times there's 3 different groups involved, or at least 2. But anyway.
Oh, well, yeah, let me know if he wants to be on the podcast. That would be pretty fun to talk to somebody like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I noticed too that people can buy your stock. I guess you're on the NASDAQ, is that right?
Yes, we're on the NASDAQ.
Okay, so how many millions worth should I buy after we get off?
Sean, I've also got my licenses, although they're in limbo. And all that, I can't give advice.
Okay.
You're welcome
just-
to buy it. We'd love to have you as a shareholder.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to go look that up right away. So what is the stock ticker?
ASTI.
ASTI, ASTI. Pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah. And how long have you been working there?
Sure. I came in CFO in December of 22. The board got rid of the old, made me CEO at the very end of April in 23. I sat the team down and look, our power output and the efficiency, however you want to look at it, is not at a high enough level to bring in 98% of all space customers. So we had down and the engineers improved our solar from, call it, 10.5% efficiency, and we just hit a record on like a month ago where we hit 15.7% efficiency. We hit an efficiency high enough to where we could really start marketing towards the end of 23, and the sales cycle is 12 to 24 month sales cycle. So we're out in front of a lot of people, and we're still trying to and hope to get higher efficiency or power output, in the next 3 to 6 months.
Great, great. And if somebody wants to buy your solar, do they need to have like government clearance, or can you only sell to Americans, or
We're unclassified.
what was that again?
I said we're unclassified, so in other words, you don't have to have a classified, you don't have to be with a secret, top secret clearance. You don't have to have a certain clearance, and we don't have to operate in clean rooms or anything like that. We just sell the product. It may go to somebody in a clean, who then's putting the satellite together in a clean room, but we don't have to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Yeah, because I remember, I don't know, like 10 or 15 years ago, looking up space solar cells. And I called the company just out of curiosity, and they're like, oh, we can't talk to you unless you have government clearance.
Correct. Somebody like Boeing.
Yeah, it was Boeing.
Probably 90+% of their satellites, they're large, they produce a lot of gallium arsenide. Because of where their satellites are going, they probably couldn't say anything.
Yeah, like military and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess, space is a super fast growing industry, and so is solar, and so you're doing both. You're like growing fast in two ways, I guess.
Yeah, the terrestrial part of things, we really only have a couple of potential applications. If somebody just wanted to, what's the best way to phrase this? You don't have to reinforce a roof with our product. But, we're somewhere between 30 and 50% less efficient than the product that's behind you, the solar panel.
Mm-hmm.
If you take our side, it would take 2 panels of our product to probably produce the same amount or more. Now, I'm working on a concentrator, and if we get the concentrator right, then so our price per watt is 8 times more expensive than a typical solar panel. Now, if you do that on a roof that you have to reinforce the roof, then you have the cost of reinforcing the roof. And technically, you'd probably be able to install ours much easier because it would roll out, although you'd have to design it in stone. So whoever's doing that would have to do joint deal, and they would be paying us for the engineering to try to engineer something now. But so somebody would have to make a decision that say, okay, it's fine for us just to get a 500 kW by rolling this out on the plant. We start on Monday, we finish on Wednesday, but truly, if they put solar panels up, they would probably get a 1.5 megawatts versus our 500 to 600 kilowatts.
All right.
That's the fundamental difference, and their price per watt would be 1/10 from 1/12 versus our product.
Okay.
The difference is that it would take them, their installation costs would be higher, and then if they had to reinforce the roof, they would have to reinforce the roof, which ours they didn't. But if you truly need, that's why I don't really sell into that market unless somebody, but if you truly needed over a megawatt, I'd tell everybody you need to go with solar. Well, you need to go with silicon solar panels.
Yeah. Yep. So how long until you think that you're going to be out there on Mars selling it? Would you go to space if you could?
And you about me personally?
Yeah, you personally.
No, probably not.
Okay, I think I do. I think I want to go check out Mars.
I don't know.
Someday.
If Elon said, Paul, you're going to Mars with me and go coming back, I might think about it.
Yeah, and then one of the things I want to do
It's
too
a long
is
trip.
I want to go to the moon, and I figure with that low gravity, there's all kinds of things. We have like a high dive and a swimming pool, and you could do like all these flips, and then maybe you could put wings on your arms like you saw people were doing 200 years ago and killing themselves. That might work with moon gravity. So we'll have to try that out.
I don't know if the water would stay in the pool. That would be stupid.
Yeah, it's like you got some gravity.
That would be one expensive pool because it probably costs $20 million to take the water.
It'll be worth it. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be worth it, and that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to set up a resort on the moon with a big old swimming pool with a high dive and a place where you can put on some wings and flap them and get airborne.
Like $20 billion to take the water to the moon.
Uh-huh.
Now, there is water on the moon and the ice, but there's not enough water to start putting, swimming pools. So you would have to take it up there, and it would be well over $20 billion, probably.
Okay, I don't know. We get all that ice up there, and then we're going to need to melt it so we can do electrolysis and make some hydrogen and oxygen, especially in space. You need the oxygen too. And so it would be a way to just store part of that cycle is, you got to have a water system and might as well be a swimming pool with a high dive. Yeah, we could have like a high dive that's like 100 feet up or something. And then we could take an amateur
you probably have it very high.
We take an amateur like me and I'll just see how many somersaults I could do. Only problem is I might clear the pool and then land on the other side. That would hurt.
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks for helping make space possible. Let's see. Is there other things that you'd like to cover?
No, you covered about everything. The big pluses for our product, we're lighter, costs less money to put it up into space. We're very, flexible, so it gives an opportunity to roll it if you needed to. And, space, we don't produce space debris, really. And then if space debris hits our product, it doesn't destroy it, or asteroids or something like that. If a large asteroid hit it, it's going to destroy it. But if most of the stuff's smaller, if it were to penetrate it, then, our stuff just goes around the hole. Those are the biggest points to be made. And then we have capacity. So if somebody needs our product in short notice, we can give it to them in short notice.
Yep. And made right there in Colorado, America. So
correct.
Pretty neat. Okay, good. And so for people wanting to look it up, we'll have it in the show notes, but it's ASCENT. So that would be Ascent Solar Technologies. And thanks, Paul Warley, Chief Executive Officer, for talking to us.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. You have a great day.
And thanks for listening to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. To learn more, go to SolarSEAN, that's SolarSEAN.com, and get yourself NABCEP certified. Woo!